Hey y'all, welcome to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dwight. And for those of you who do, like Mace said, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Anyway, I'm starting this YouTube series to talk to you all about how I quit my job as a six-figure earning executive to take a chance on myself and become a full-time content creator, entrepreneur, and business owner. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds crazy. And that's because it is. And if you know me, you know I'm always going to keep it a stack. And if you don't know me, I always keep it funky. And that's why this first video is going to be specifically about all of the challenges that I had to overcome before I could even start my journey. Now, usually you hear people saying, just quit the job if you hate it. But then how are you going to pay your bills? And then you hear people say, just turn on the camera and start recording. That sounds good, but if it were that easy, we all would have done it already. So, like I said, this is going to be a series. Make sure you subscribe and lock in to get to the next steps about how I actually launched it, overcame these barriers, and then became successful. I'll start by telling y'all honestly and candidly about wanting to leave that six-figure executive job. So, I started my career really young, and I was fortunate enough to climb the ladder in many different spaces. And I just remember waking up every morning and going to my job and thinking to myself, I really don't want to be here. And as much as I loved what I did, it just started to feel exhausting and like I was just doing it for a paycheck. And I already knew that I was experiencing burnout and I needed to get out of there. But I couldn't figure out what the escape plan was. I honestly started to feel stuck. I felt closed in and I'm claustrophobic. So whenever that happens, I start to panic. So I got myself in therapy and I started talking to my therapist about all the different options that I had to get out of that job. And it wasn't easy. I mean, I was going there every single day thinking to myself, I have so much more in the world to offer. And let's not forget about the constant microaggressions that you feel, the constant like having to work long hours, 10-hour days, working on the weekends. And yeah, the money was good and I was making a decent salary, but I kept asking myself if I was truly happy. And the answer was just no, I wasn't. And then one day I started making content on TikTok, and obviously it didn't take off right away, but I started to feel fulfilled. I was like, I think this is my calling. This is what I want to do. But so many other things get in the way. So let's talk about imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is something that most Black people and marginalized groups experience on their journey to doing anything. And so in the process of wanting to take a chance on yourself, you start asking yourself, am I good enough? Can I be in these spaces? Do people hear or want to hear what I have to say? Am I going to be worth anything? Is this going to make any money or any progress? And initially, I'm going to tell you the truth, the answer felt like no. And it felt defeating. When I first started making TikTok videos, I wasn't getting any views. I'm talking maybe 100 if I was lucky, some days 50. And I knew that I wanted to do it, but people kept saying, like, you're not being serious. Like, you need to get up and go to work. And you start to believe that. I started to internalize the fact that what I was doing for my career and for a living was all that I could do. And the thing is that even in my career and even in spaces, people would always tell me how much they thought I was inspirational and how I had a lot to offer the world. And even when I was at work, I would be sitting around questioning myself, like, are you even good enough to have a seat at this table? How did you become an executive? How are you even going to keep this job? And I started to internalize that and believe it. And it got so bad to the point where I was like, I don't think that I can be an influencer. I need to just stick this job out. And then I did what we all do, which was go down an endless rabbit hole of trying to find jobs on Indeed. And then to make imposter syndrome worse, the job market is trash right now. So while I'm going down a rabbit hole and you're submitting all these applications that you're more than qualified for, you start to think that you can't do anything else and that you're not good enough to do anything else. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to come to terms with, was whether or not I really felt like I needed to commit to this and hone in on my craft and do better, or just stay in that six-figure earning job and be happy that I made enough money or I made it to where most people my age wouldn't make it. And then when I got in therapy and I started to talk through it, I unlocked a better part of me. I started to understand that I had the potential and I just needed to do the thing. And I'm going to talk more about that in the next video, but imposter syndrome was a large part of the reason why I almost did not take a chance on myself. And imposter syndrome is something that we all experience, and it's not something that you can always like diagnose or understand, but that is one of the first barriers that you're probably going to have to overcome. And I would suggest, and this video is not really about suggestions, but I would suggest just getting in front of a camera and practicing, and stop doubting yourself, because there's probably someone out there that needs to hear what you're saying. The next thing that is so real and like the craziest struggle is finding the time. If I'm already working 10-hour days and I'm struggling to focus and stay afloat and to live life and to pay bills and to think, and I have ADHD, so that didn't help me none, but there's never enough time in a day. You're constantly going to tell yourself that you don't have the time to focus on your craft, make content, and to grow and start your business. I'm telling you right now, no matter how much I convinced myself that a right time would come, the right time never came. So I sat around and I kept saying to myself, one day I'm going to get a break. I'm going to take vacation from that job and I'm going to focus on my craft. The reality of it is when I did take vacation, I was so tired and burnt out that I just wanted to lay there and do nothing. And when you come home from work, it's like, now I have to make content. I have to draft this business proposal. I have to do all these things. And I've already worked a 10-hour day and it is exhausting. And there's times where you're sitting in front of your computer or in front of the camera and you're thinking to yourself, I just want to give up because I don't have the time for this. Like, I'm so burnt out. I'm so exhausted. And I quit a few times because I was like, I can't keep going to this job, coming home and making content, and then turning around and having meetings and creating business proposals. And the reality of it was that it was either that I was going to shit or get off the pot, excuse my language. So I had to make a decision that there was never going to be a right time. And if I really wanted this to take off, if I really wanted to be great at what I'm doing, I have to find the time and focus on my craft. And that even meant sometimes not being all in at work. And I know what you're thinking, like, I don't want to lose my job. And you shouldn't. Like, I'm not telling you to lose your job at all. But what I was saying is that I was giving 10,000%, and I had to scale it back to maybe giving about 6,000, because the 10,000 was only benefiting somebody else. It wasn't benefiting me. And trying to find the time to work full time, to be a parent full time, to pay bills and enjoy life, some of the things that I love the most, I had to let go of or put on pause temporarily while I focused on getting everything off the ground. And if that meant on the weekends that I couldn't go out and do what I wanted to do, that's just what it was. But time, there never feels like there's enough time. It always feels like you have to make time for everything else, but not for your dreams. And that was the easiest thing that could have made me give up. Was like, I don't have the time to do this, nor do I have the energy, and I'm so tired. But when you take a chance on yourself, it's a part of it. Like, you don't have a choice but to find the time. And you have to think to yourself, and this is what I told myself along the journey, is like, in the end, this is going to be worth it because you're going to be much happier. But in the moment, nobody cares about that. It feels hard. You're exhausted. You just want to lay down and relax. And honestly, you don't feel like you have enough time to do the things that you love to do for yourself. But you have to find a way to stay encouraged, which I'm also going to talk about in the next episode when I talk about how I overcame these obstacles. And y'all know me. Y'all know how black people don't like to talk about their coins, like to talk about their money. But I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, the money is a part of the struggle. It's like, I can't quit my job. People always say, just quit that job. Just leave that job as an executive. They're burning you out. You're tired. But then you also have to realize you have bills to pay. And me personally, I live in New York City. Okay, the bills be billing out here. So just quitting my job wasn't necessarily an option at the beginning. And if you don't have any savings, which most Americans have already shared that they don't, and let's not even get started about the tariffs and the skyrocketing prices and how the economy is getting bad, but you can't just quit your job because you have to have money to pay your bills. And most of us don't have an insane savings or come from wealth. So the reality of it is that you have to play both roles. And that's find a way to make your money and also do your job, right? And so a part of what was a struggle in trying to take a bet on myself and becoming an entrepreneur, you could have all the skills, even if you have all the time, even if you have all the support and the backing. Do you have the money? Because you're not going to make a lot of money in the beginning. And it can be defeating, especially when you're trying to monetize. People always talk about how great it is to monetize on a lot of these platforms, but what they don't tell you is at the beginning, you're not making any real money. You're not. Honestly, on YouTube, you need like 4,000 watch hours just to start making money. On TikTok, I think you need like 10,000 followers. And then they only pay you per 1,000 views. And on Instagram, they don't pay at all anymore. So on a lot of these platforms, you're not making any real money at the beginning. Now, let me say this, and I'm going to give you an insider and let you know about what could be. I now currently am making off TikTok alone upward to about $4,000 monthly. So it is absolutely possible. You will make the money, but you have to build your platform first. And that is going to cost you time and money. And you know what they say, time is money. So if you want to get the money, you got to put in the time. And those two things go hand in hand. But I wouldn't recommend anybody just quitting their job, because I didn't just quit my job at first. I started to build my platform. And then eventually when I got to a point where I felt like I was sustained enough and I was able to secure enough business to be able to pay my bills through my LLC and my business, that is when I was like, yeah, I'm done with this job. Though I don't have everything I need, I have enough. When you get to the point where you have enough, that's when you're going to want to think about, is this job worth it and should I make that shift? But I'm letting you know now that the hardest part is understanding that you need money. We need money to survive. Nothing is free, nothing is cheap. And so while people tell you all these glorified stories about monetizing, it takes a long time to monetize. And when you start monetizing, you're going to want to give up, because you're going to see that you're only making a few dollars to the penny. And that's not enough for anyone to live. So I'm letting you know now that if you're thinking about just quitting your job, you should not do that if you don't have a significant amount of savings. It is going to take you time. And that was one of the hardest things for me to recognize, because our fear as people in general is being broke and not able to live or survive, or just being able to survive but not being able to live. So in order to avoid that, and honestly, a lot of us are doing that on our salary now anyway, but the only way to avoid that is to stay at your job and find time to work around your schedule to start to lock in. But I'm going to talk more about that in the next episode, on how you can map out your own time and figure out a schedule that works for you, where you still have a job and you can still pay your bills, but you can also make content. So make sure you lock into that next episode. And then we have to talk about the fear of starting over. Like, it is scary to think that you've done this thing for so long. You've perfected your craft in your profession, and now you have to start from scratch. What does that look like? What does it mean to start your own thing? I was so used to depending on my income from a job. I have not been without a job since I was 14. My entire life, I've known that I was either getting paid every other Friday or on the 1st and the 15th. What does it look like now to have to figure out your own pay schedule, start all over, find your own business, find people who want to work with you, and create your own content? And not to mention that one of the hardest things to not do when you're in that situation is to people watch. Sometimes you're watching people who have platforms or are doing the thing that you want to do, and you see how fast things are going for them and how they're taking off and how they're winning. The worst thing you can do for yourself is people watch, because you start to think to yourself, I'm not doing enough. This is not making enough of an impact. Just because somebody's platform is taking off before yours, or somebody's business has taken off before yours. But that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make when they're betting on themselves. Don't look at other people for what success looks like. And the other thing is that you have to find the time to sit down and define success for yourself over time. And yes, I know that is hard to do when you don't have a lot of time. But if you truly want to start over, you have to sit down with yourself and ask, what does starting over look like? What does it look like for me to take a chance or bet on myself? And then also, what is progress for me? And progress doesn't happen overnight. And that is terrifying, okay? We want instant gratification. So to think that I have to start over, figure it out, and I'm watching people who started maybe at the same time as me, or a little before me, or a little after, who just so happen to take off, and you start to feel defeated. but you have to lock in and believe in yourself because it's truly about taking a bet on you. That's what it all comes down to. If you're taking a bet on you, you have to really lock in and go all in on you, and that's hard. But I'm going to talk to you in the next episode about some ways that you can overcome that and get out of your head so that you can be successful and really take off on what you want to do and unlock your fullest potential. And then one day I sat down with myself and I had that aha moment where I thought, what would it look like if you put the same level of energy into your dreams and into your passion and into your work that you do into that job? And that's when it clicked for me. I'm not quitting. I'm taking a chance on myself. And that was the moment that changed everything for me. I made a decision that being at the job wasn't good for me mentally, physically, or in any health capacity. And I said to myself, imagine if you were this tired because you took a chance on you. And all of this energy, all of the resources that you have, all of your brain power, all of the things that you've created are just for you and owned by you. And now people are actually paying you to do what you love, which is content creation and consulting. And that was it. History was made. I jumped in head first and I'm not turning back. And this is what this series is going to be about. Here I am sitting in front of you as an entrepreneur, a content creator, and a business owner after taking a bet on myself. So if you really, really want to hear the story and go on this journey with me, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to make sure you keep coming back. Lock in, twin, because we're going to talk about it. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk about what I did to set myself up to quit the job, leave the job, and to get to the next level of betting on myself and unlocking my fullest potential. I also am going to take a moment to plug my business, BLeadership LLC. There's a website. You can look us up online. I do a lot of work with career coaching and life coaching where I help people unlock their greatest potential. And if you're interested in that service, please reach out and we can set up some time to do an initial consulting and go from there. But I'm really excited to bring you all along on this journey with me. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe for more information. And welcome to our story. We're going to make this work for us. Lock in.